Hello, everybody. It's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony. Thanks for coming back to my channel. I wanted to come in here, do a little update. I was on here about a month ago talking about Pluto entering Aquarius, among other things. So today, what we're going to go over are the two eclipses coming up here, one this week and then one in a couple of weeks from now, as well as Mercury turning retrograde, which is actually going to be happening at the end of this week as well. So today is Monday, April 17th, 2023. Here is a look at the current planets in front of us, and we'll kind of use this as our guide. You can see Jupiter here in Aries. That's going to be moving into Taurus. We'll talk about that. We also can see the nodes here. So the sun is very close to the nodes, so we know it's eclipse season. And that's what we're going to have here on the docket here this week. So today, again, being Monday, it'll be Wednesday evening or Thursday morning, depending on where you are. That is when we're going to have the solar eclipse in Aries. It'll be at about 29 degrees Aries just before the sun enters Taurus. And so it's getting pretty close to that point right now. And it's aligned with the North Node, like I said. So that makes it an eclipse that has to do with moving things forward. Okay. And so in Aries, 29th degree, critical degree of Aries, this can be a pretty strong thrust forward for a lot of us. So look out for that personally as well as collectively. It's going to be close enough to be a conjunction to Jupiter too. So that adds some expansion to that, what's already a fiery and amplified energy, and it takes it a step further. So really a lot of potential for some big moves happening here in the next few months following this eclipse. And another aspect it'll be making, speaking of Pluto just entering Aquarius, there it is at 0 degrees Aquarius. So this solar eclipse is going to make a pretty strong square to Pluto in Aquarius. Okay. So again, adding to this idea of, big changes, big transformations. So whatever we intend, whatever we put our energy into here, the end of this week and the following weeks ahead to a couple of months ahead, this could have the potential for things to blow up and grow very quickly. So that can be a very good thing, can also be a very negative thing depending on what we're doing. On the heels of that solar eclipse here happening on Thursday or Wednesday night into Thursday, will be on Friday. That's going to be the 21st of April. That is when Mercury turns retrograde at about 15 degrees Taurus. Okay. And so we can see Mercury right there at about 14 degrees, almost 15 degrees Taurus. So it's slowing down quite a bit. It'll be pretty slow this whole week. And then it's going to turn retrograde just before it hits, just before it meets with Uranus. So it won't quite get an exact conjunction with Uranus, but it'll start turning retrograde. And it's going to retrograde back to about 6 degrees Taurus, and that will be on May 14th. So April 21st turns retrograde at 15 degrees. May 14th turns direct at about 6 degrees of Taurus. So this will be our zone of the retrograde, and it happens, just very close, with these eclipses as well. So it's going to initiate in between the two eclipses, and it'll end after the second eclipse. So we'll get a little bit more into that in a second, but that following eclipse is going to occur at 15 degrees Scorpio, and that's going to be a lunar eclipse. So the moon will be opposite the sun, which will be in Taurus. In fact, it'll be on the same degree as Mercury turning retrograde at 15 degrees Taurus. So that degree is going to have some significance here, since it's the point of Mercury's retrograde as well as a point of the eclipse following it in a couple of weeks. And that second eclipse happens on May 5th. So May 5th, moon at 15 degrees Scorpio opposing the sun at 15 degrees Taurus. And that one is going to be aligned with both Mercury retrograde as well as Uranus and Taurus. So the moon will be opposite both of those. It'll also be in a trine to Mars in Cancer as well. Okay, and that eclipse, because the south node is involved with the moon, in that case, this is eclipse, especially since it's in the sign of Scorpio, has a lot to do with release. Okay, so the first eclipse here on April 19th or so, 20th, that one has a lot to do with moving forward and fast growth. And then this following eclipse on May 5th, that has a lot to do with releasing, making room for that growth, essentially. So pretty intense couple of eclipses here as we transition into eclipses that will be happening in Aries and Libra rather than Taurus and Scorpio where they have been occurring. And so we're going to have that first eclipse in Aries. That's the first eclipse in Aries in a long time, many years here. But we're just kind of due for that now. We're going to be transitioning into that over the coming months and couple of years. But this is going to be a pretty noticeable shift and transition here the next few months with these eclipse lineups. And with Mercury retrograde in Taurus, this there could be a lot of adjustments having to do with the basics, money, food, things of that nature. So think on a collective level, this could be a time where we've already had talks and news about food scarcities and farms shutting down and things like that. So this could be on the radar pretty strongly here as a topic of conversation. I find it interesting. I mentioned last month when I talked about Pluto entering Aquarius, how AI, artificial intelligence, is going to be strongly on the radar. And Pluto is giving us a glimpse of that by moving into Aquarius for a couple of months here in the spring. But then it's more into 2024, 2025 when it will move permanently into Aquarius, when artificial intelligence is really going to become a strong topic of conversation. Just now, just for example, there was an open letter associated with Elon Musk talking about putting a pause on artificial intelligence until we have better control, better understanding of it, and not just letting it run rampant because of the potentials for what it can do in terms of humans, things that are actually alive, right? And so that might be wise at this point. And Pluto entering Aquarius just might be, our first initial collective awareness of the potentials of artificial intelligence and, where it could go and where we don't want it to go. In other words, getting very clear on where we don't want it to go is going to be very important. And Pluto is actually going to be turning retrograde here. So it's slowing down quite a bit. And on May 1st, so just a couple weeks from now, just before that second eclipse at 15 degrees Scorpio, that lunar eclipse, that release eclipse, that will turn retrograde on May 1st. So that glimpse into Aquarius is somewhat short-lived this go around. And so expect AI to be on the radar. Okay, that along with what the Mercury retrograde in Taurus and the readjustments with food and money and the basics of life, right? Then speaking of Taurus, Jupiter in the late degrees of Aries will be moving its way into Taurus shortly after Mercury turns direct at 6 degrees Taurus on May 14th. So May 14th, Mercury turns direct. May 16th, now we have Jupiter entering Taurus. Okay, and when Jupiter is in Taurus, it's going to allow for a lot more growth and improvement along the same lines of what we're reviewing in Taurus with Mercury turning retrograde. So the next few weeks is really about contemplating those basics, basic needs, money, etc. And when Jupiter enters Taurus, it'll be a time of now approaching and putting more focus and energy on moving things forward. So we'll have more clarity by about mid-May when Jupiter enters Taurus. And some of the things some of the aspects Jupiter is going to make while in Taurus, one significant one that will last actually for most of the second half of 2023 will be a sextile to Saturn over here in Pisces. So Jupiter is moving a little bit faster than Saturn. I think it's when they get to about 6 degrees. So when Jupiter gets to about 6 degrees Taurus, it'll be forming a sextile to Saturn at 6 degrees Pisces. And that again will be starting around June or so. And that's going to last for essentially the second half of 2023. And so, Saturn and Jupiter, it's expansion and contraction together, working in potential harmony with the sextile energy. So it can be a really good time to gradually put our lives in the direction that we imagine them to be, or imagine we want them to be. So that's Pisces is all about the vision, right? And Saturn is kind of helping us construct that vision. When we add Jupiter into that mix in Taurus, we're getting concrete and tangible with that. So it's an opportunity to get more concrete and tangible with our ideals and what we're wanting in life. Okay. And so that's going to be a pretty significant and long lasting aspect from Jupiter. And it will also, just as it crosses into Taurus, it'll be at 0 degrees Taurus, making us a hard square to Pluto over here at 0 degrees Aquarius. So that will be in mid-May. So expect some big announcements on the in the news front and whatnot here in mid to late May when Jupiter is squaring Pluto, and it could have to do with technology, okay, especially technologies associated with the basics, food, etc. There could be some big things about that. Could also be some stock market issues because we're talking about you know our stability as it relates to the future. Okay, so things could be shaken up a little bit through these eclipses, through that Jupiter square to Pluto in mid-May. But following that, as Jupiter is, forming that sextile to Saturn for a long period of time, it's almost as if something has to break apart here in the spring. So in the April-May timeframe, something kind of falls apart. But that makes the room for something new to build. And so that we'll see that both personally and collectively. So don't be afraid if something doesn't work out or falls apart on you, because this is definitely a time to allow things to let go. That's that second eclipse here, May 5th in Scorpio. So allow what needs to be gone to be, consciously letting that go. And then just embrace the other side of it, that this eclipse coming this week, conjunct Jupiter here in the last degree of Aries, what really wants to grow here, because that's really what's happening here, is we're just making room for this new growth. So anyway, that's a quick look at both the eclipses, Mercury retrograde, Pluto turning retrograde here at 0 degrees Aquarius, and how it relates to Jupiter, the Mercury retrograde and the eclipses. And then also, again, Jupiter going to be entering Taurus here in mid-May, right after the Mercury retrograde and shortly after both of the eclipses. So another thing on the horizon will be the change of the nodes. So I mentioned, we have the sun is always going to be near the nodes during eclipse season, and where the eclipses happen have to do with where the nodes are, obviously. So, and the nodes are going to be shifting. So they've been in North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio for well over a year and a half, getting close to a year and a half now. And they're going to be switching signs. So the North Node's going to retrograde back into Aries. South Node will go back into Libra. And so the eclipses coming up over the next year and a half or so are going to be moving into Aries, Libra exclusively, whereas we're in that transition now. So we have one in Aries, but the other one's still in the old signs in Scorpio. But that will be happening here. The nodes, I believe, switch in July. So midsummer nodal switch. I talked about this in the 2023 year ahead look. So a lot about individuation, getting out of codependence, and getting more into our sovereign thinking, sovereign authority, thinking for ourselves, and seeing ourselves as individuals, not as just part of some group or identifying as some group. So all the identity politics that are out there right now, we're gonna start seeing that in the next, like, say, from summer 2023 right on to the end of 2024. We're gonna start seeing some deterioration of the identity politics. So I imagine that's and how that relates to, like, the U.S. election, that's going to be in this from midsummer this summer right on through essentially that 2024 election in the fall. And that's also when Pluto will move into Aquarius permanently, is at the end of that year. So we're kind of building up to this, but there's a sense of that nodal signature going from South Node in Libra to North Node in Aries, where individuation becomes more important to people than being part of a group or being identified as a group. And so that can be a very healthy thing for sovereignty. And with Pluto moving into Aquarius, that also has that same theme of sovereignty and recognizing the uniqueness of the individual, and not just letting yourself be part of the herd, essentially. But anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you again for stopping by and listening to my latest astrology information. And if you are interested in having your chart looked at in terms of where these eclipses are landing, where the Mercury retrograde is, where Pluto and Jupiter are in your own chart, please, you can connect with me. We can always set up a consultation. So again, it's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony and signing off. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks a lot. Bye.